Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people think they can do whatever the heck they want because they're better than everybody. Guys, I hope you're having a great day today as usual. And as always, the stories in this one are super crazy. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and get ready to shake your heads, guys. I hope you enjoy the stories, and do hit that subscribe button for future tales. So for a backstory, I work in a bakery in a medium-sized supermarket. So apart from baking, slicing, and packaging breads, pies, and other pastries, I also have to clean all the dishes and clean my floors when I work the closing shifts. So a few weeks ago when I was working, I came from the back where we wash our dishes to help this lady who we'll call Karen, who is standing near our counter by the bread slicer with an attitude. Now I'm assuming she was mad because she had to wait because the other worker was busy with another customer. So I come over and the woman literally throws the bread on the counter and she screams at me saying, "You, slice this now." Now I'm thinking she had a rough day, so no problem. I just want to get her out of here, so I politely say, "Yes, ma'am." And I grab a pair of gloves and start to put them on. So at this, Karen says, "You're not gonna wash your hands before you touch my food?" I tell her, "Oh, no ma'am, I've already washed them before I came out here, plus I'm putting on gloves." Karen then says, "Don't give me that crap. I don't want you to touch my bread with those nasty hands of yours." I told her, "Okay, I can wash them again if you want." So at this, Karen tells me, "You know what? Don't bother. I'm glad you did this and I caught you so I can report you to your manager." So Karen then goes off to another department and asks for the department manager, and she starts yelling at him in front of the bakery and other people, pointing at me saying that I'm dirty, that I don't wash my hands, and that I'm a disgusting worker, and she ends up calling me a cracker. My manager tries to calm her down and ends up washing his hands and cutting the bread to make her leave. I explain the situation to my manager, and he basically says that next time, just wash my hands by one of our sinks next to our counter. But if she comes back and tries to cause a scene again, to let him know and he'll tell her to leave. The store manager tells me the same thing. So fast forward to yesterday. The woman comes back towards closing time where my coworker and my department manager are both gone. So I'm the only one working the bakery. She's holding bread to be sliced again and hasn't noticed it's me when she asks me to slice her bread, until I reach my hand out to get the bread when she stops and says, No, you're not helping me. You don't wash your hands. You are disgusting." Now, she said that with a rude look on her face. I immediately smiled and said, "Oh, no worries. Have a nice night." I then walked off to help another lady, and then walked into the back to clean the dishes. So about 15 minutes later, I hear yelling, and she says, "Excuse me?" So I walk back up and said, "Yes, ma'am." Karen gives me another rude look and says, "Why is no one helping me? Are all the employees here this useless?" I told her, "No, ma'am, I'm the only one in the bakery." So Karen then says, "Then wash your damn hands and slice my bread." I told her, "No, ma'am, I'm not serving you. I'm sorry, but have a nice night." She says, "You are slicing my bread. You have to. Don't make me get the manager. I'll have you fired." I told her, "Ma'am, you told me not to serve you, so I'm not gonna serve you. Have a nice night." I then walked to the back to clean more dishes. So the woman ends up throwing her bread on the ground and throws a tantrum. My store manager comes in and tells her that she needs to leave for causing a scene, and he threatens to call the police if she doesn't leave. So Karen leaves, but not without more screaming and more name-calling directed at me. And then she leaves. I tell my store manager what happened, and he told me that I should have handled it way better, and that I caused her to get angry and to get a hold of him if that ever happened again. Oh well. Okay guys, so I've said this multiple times before. I have so much respect for retail workers who have to deal with customers like this on a regular. Honestly, I believe that OP handled that situation quite well, and I'm surprised that woman wasn't banned from the store after the first encounter. Maybe the store manager could have handled that better. Okay, so this story takes place about 12 years ago. I live in this upper-class town, where everybody acts like complete self-righteous, narcissistic, entitled boneheads, and feel that their crap smells better than everybody else's. People buy their kids new luxury cars when they hit 16. My neighbor got a brand new BMW for passing her driving exam. Now, it sounds absurd, but that's just how my town is. Of course, with spoiled brats comes entitlement on the road. People drive like they own the road and that nobody else matters. They blow through stop signs, turn left on red, and park wherever their car can fit. I'm one of the few people who live here that works a job to pay for college. So one day, I decide to grab a bite to eat during my lunch break. I get to the parking lot to find one empty space and I pull in. So I get out, go inside, and spend maybe half an hour there. So after a great lunch, I go back to see that my car is blocked into the space by a huge gray SUV with hazards on. I was completely blocked in the spot as right in front of me there was a sidewalk. So I take a picture of the license plate just for reference. I then wait patiently for the person who owns the car to show back up because there was literally nothing I could do at this point. About 20 minutes later, a Karen who looks to be in her mid-50s shows up and sees me in my car listening to music. So the woman knocks on my window and tells me that I need to turn my music down, and it's people like me who are messing up her city. I look at her blankly, as my music isn't that loud, and she yells in my face to turn off your music. Now, I had no clue who this crazy woman was, so I just turned my music off, roll the window up, and continue waiting for the owner to come back and move their car. I then find out that it's Karen who owns the SUV. She grabs the keys out of her purse, hops in, and screeches away. Now, this woman has the audacity to block 3 cars in while she went into a store for half an hour, and she complains that my music is too loud. I was late back to work that day, and I got in crap for it. It was at that point that I swore if I ever saw her again that I would do to her what she had done to me. So fast forward a month later, I decide to go back to my favorite burger joint after work, and went to the same place in the same parking lot. So I go there and see the same gray SUV taking up both of the last 2 parking spots in the lot. So I then take out my phone and saw that the license plate matched and thought, bingo. Now, I'm on cloud 9 at this moment. I park right next to the driver's side of her car, making sure that I was in the spot, and that she couldn't get into her car. Now, there was about 5 inches between my passenger door and her driver door. I leave my car, grab my food, and patiently sit in my car. Well, what do you know? About half an hour later, the woman walks back to her double-parked car to see that I had sealed her in. I can hear her yelling that she's gonna sue the person who did this. She then sees me listening to music in my car just sitting there. She then approaches my car and demands that I move. I tell her, you got into that spot, you can get out of that spot. I am parked perfectly fine in my spot. At this point, Karen threatens to call the cops, and I just laugh thinking, good luck. Karen calls the cops at this point and screams at me that I'm gonna be arrested and thrown in jail for messing with her. So about half an hour later, a police cruiser shows up. I get out of my car, and the woman starts yelling at the cop about how I blocked her in and that I need to be arrested immediately. I tell the cop that she double parked, and I just came in and parked in the spot beside her, pointing out that I'm well in the lines. The cop looks at her car and then looks at mine, and he looks so disappointed after. The officer says to Karen that I did absolutely nothing wrong, and that it was 100% her fault for parking like that. He also said that she needs to move her car within the next minute or he's gonna ticket her for parking illegally. So angrily, Karen climbs in her passenger door, and she's struggling to reach the driver's side. The whole time, she's screaming how I'm a good-for-nothing college kid and that she's taking my license plate down so her husband lawyer can sue me. I'm trying so hard to keep a straight face, but I just start laughing my ass off because of her stupid remark. At this point, Karen looks at me, and it seems that she finally remembered who I was. She then looks at me screaming, You were that idiot with the loud music. F you. Karen then starts her car and she speeds out of the parking lot, nearly hitting the cop car, and she then full throttles it to the end of the parking lot. Karen, forgetting that she isn't queen of the world, immediately gets pulled over by the cop with flashing lights and all. I waited a bit before I pulled out of my spot, and I hear the woman screaming, reckless driving? I then pull away from the lot to have the greatest sense of fulfillment I've ever had in my life. My friends, what a super satisfying story, and I'm so glad Karen got what she deserved. So OP does attach a picture to this post, and look how this woman parked. I absolutely love how OP snapped a picture of this, and I love how his car fits perfectly in the parking space, just enough to block the Karen from getting into her driver's seat. Guys, the picture and the story makes me so happy. The fact that the cop taught her a lesson by making her move her car by crawling through her passenger side is amazing. And the cherry on top is that her entitled attitude got her a ticket at the end. I also love this comment right here in the post. This person says, if I were you, I would cruise by that same parking lot whenever I was bored, just to see if another opportunity to ruin her day pops up. So this story happens in 2013. I was working at a movie theater in my town in a rich, uppity area. This was right after Wolf of Wall Street came out. Now, this movie caused a lot of problems. So after a lot of refunds for the movie because of a scene where Leo did a line of coke off a hooker's butt, we were told to warn people exactly what they were getting into. We were getting a ton of refunds every showing, so it was my job to remind people the rating and what they were getting themselves into. So cue the little old lady who we'll call Karen. She was an old lady who was a short woman with a very short pixie cut. She wore activewear leggings, an overlarge t-shirt, and a fanny pack. Karen waddles over to my ticket booth, fishing money out of her fanny pack saying, "1 ticket to Wolf of Wall Street." Karen stated that before yelling loudly, "Senior." Yes, Karen, I can tell that you're a senior. And no, you're not the type of person for this movie. I can tell. I begin saying, "Okay, but just so you know, ma'am, it's R-rated." I then start to explain that we've gotten a lot of complaints, etc., but she groans and rolls her eyes, slapping her hand on the table. She then says, "Just do your damn job and give me a ticket. You don't think I can handle an R-rated movie?" I told her, "Okay ma'am, 1 senior coming up." I then hand her the ticket and she snatches it out of my hand and waddles off to the theater. I wave goodbye at this point. As if on cue, about half an hour or so of her entering the theater, her, like most people who have no idea what they're getting into, walks out of the theater. Now, I was about to call my manager and was getting ready to give her my best "I tried to warn you" look, when I realized that she had just come out to make a phone call. All my hopes and dreams were crumbled. Maybe I misread her, but she for sure was not the type to enjoy this movie. So I sighed in defeat and went back to waiting for movies to get out. So I then go on with my job, and a little while later, I see 2 police officers come in. Since again, I was in a ticket booth, they approached me asking if I can get the manager. I asked them what was going on, and the officer said, "So, we got a call about some illegal adult films being screened here. Is there a manager on duty that we can speak to?" I was about to call my manager on duty when out of the corner of my eye, I see Karen walk up to them. She makes a huge scene screaming, "Officer, you need to arrest her for selling me a ticket to that disgusting illegal thing of what they're trying to say is a movie." Now, the woman huffed. She was red in the face, panting, "I demand you shut this place down." The officer looks at her and says, "You were the one that called about the movie, ma'am?" She then screamed at the officer saying, "There are kids engaging in adult activities in this movie. It's disgusting." Now at this point I said, "Whoa, wait, children? What? We had nothing remotely like that here or ever." Karen says, "Yes, that movie in there, that Wolf of Wall Street should not be in theaters. They cannot show that kind of movie here." Now as soon as the officer heard Wolf of Wall Street, he rolls his eyes and said, "Ma'am, is this why you called us?" She says, "Yes, because back in my day, the police would have shut this place down." The woman was screaming her head off as the officers got the hint and began to leave. The officer said, "Ma'am, do you know what you did is illegal? You called in a false report." She says, "But I didn't make a false police report." The officers ignored her, saying, "Have a great day, ma'am." Now I could see the officer beaming with obvious annoyance as they started to file out, and Karen angrily follows them, yelling at them to do something. So right when the officer was about to exit the door, Karen makes a huge mistake. Karen grabs the push bar for the door, and she yanks it back to keep the door closed to not let them leave, hitting the officer with the door. The last I saw, she was escorted out to the police cruiser. Not sure if she was charged with public mischief for calling in a false report or what, and I'm not sure what happened to her. I never did see that woman again, but I did see the officer though. It turns out he loves taking his family out to the theater, and I've seen him before, just never knew he was a cop. Wow guys, so calling the police on an R-rated movie is just ridiculous. Just do what OP said and get your refund and move on. Like, I can't imagine what she would have done if she took her grandkids to a movie like Sausage Party. Like, I think she would have gotten FBI involved at that point. I'm the executive assistant to the CEO of a pretty big fashion brand, which basically means that I'm my boss's bitch. I do whatever she asks. My job has many aspects, and it's always open to more. It gets tiring sometimes, but there are perks to my job. I get a lot of free clothes, mainly for when I go to big events with my boss. My boss also gives me any defects. Clothing that came out wrong or is imperfect or not up to my boss's standards. Now this for some reason makes people think that I'm stuck up, but I swear I'm not. I really appreciate that my boss does this, as there was a time when I had very little and couldn't even afford to buy food, let alone cheap clothing. Anyways, one day, my boss mentions that one of the wedding dresses she has had a defect in the train. It was shorter than it was supposed to be. She asked if I knew anyone who could use one. I then remembered my best friend of 5 years had gotten engaged a few months before. My boss gave me the dress and I gave it to my friend. This friend has been there for me since I was 20, and she took me in to help me find a path out of a very dark situation. I love her more than anything in the world, but here's where things get messy. So my friend made a Facebook post thanking me and my boss. My family saw it and started a stream of calls and messages to me. Now, I want to note that I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 years old after I came out to them. My sister wasn't much better than my parents. We actually never got along even before I was kicked out. She was a very entitled person who is very selfish. I struggled for a very long time after that. I lived with my aunt until I was 18, which wasn't easy as we had very little money. I ended up going to design school, and then getting an internship, and then a job at my current company. I was making good money and working for a multi-million-dollar company, and they suddenly wanted back in my life. So basically, my mom and sister called demanding to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not my sister. Apparently she was getting married. I didn't even know she was engaged. They then berate me saying how family should come first. Now these are the people that kicked me out when I was 16 years old. They even tried to suggest that I take the dress back from my friend as family should come first. When I told them point blank that that was never gonna happen, they started bashing me to my extended family, who also started messaging me to insult me. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain, which is nuts, right? A little more positive news is that my friend texted me today saying that her and her friend made a pact to use the wedding dress I gave them. Isn't that sweet? But guys, it's crazy how OP's family tried to wiggle their way back into OP's life after she got a good career and was making good money. OP definitely should have kept no contact. It sounds like letting them back into her life is causing unnecessary drama. And it also bugs me that they said family should always come first and that the wedding dress should have gone to her sister, like the same family who disowned her, right? And kicked her out. But that, my friends, is Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and if you did, do give it a thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I will link it right here. An insane Karen berates OP for having her disabled daughter in public, saying she needs to lock her up. It's such a crazy story, so go check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.